Hi, and welcome back to another episode in the C# Practical Funkiness series. Today we're diving into classic function composition. Function composition is the process of combining two or more functions into a single function, where the output of one becomes the input of the next. Rather than applying each function in isolation, you build a pipeline of transformations. This approach lets you write small, reusable functions and combine them declaratively to express more complex behaviours. In C#, this means that we can write code that flows top to bottom and left to right, much like reading a recipe. We can compose functions in C# using func delegates, either defined in line or more practically by using a simple extension method like AndThen, which we'll look at shortly. If you're starting a composition chain with an existing method rather than a delegate, you'll need to wrap it so it returns a func. This allows it to participate in the entire chain using the AndThen extension. Let's walk through a realistic example, no sugarcoating here. Imagine you're building a quoting system for a health insurance product. Let's say you've already written 4 small methods used within your application. One that calculates a person's age based on their date of birth and the current date. One that maps an age to an age band, like child, teenager, adult or senior. Another that determines the discount rate based on the age band. And one that applies a discount using the current base price. You now need a function that can create a quotation based on a person's date of birth, and you want to compose your existing methods into a new functional pipeline that goes current date to age band to discount rate to the final price. You also know about the AndThen extension method that can be used to compose new functions that works with functions that expect a single parameter. But here's the issue. Not all of the methods are as simple as taking a single input and returning a single output. For example, calculate age needs both a date of birth and the current date. So why is that a problem? Well, technically it's not a problem. You can use lambdas to supply missing arguments, but from a composition perspective, it's a limitation. The utility wrapper and the AndThen extension are written to work with unary functions that take one input. This is a common convention when writing generic composition tools. To work around that, instead of using a lambda or utility wrapper just to kick off the chain, we can use partial application, a concept we covered in an earlier episode. We start with the calculate age method, which takes 2 inputs, and since we know the person's date of birth, we can partially apply that value, giving us a new function that just needs the current date to return an age. On line 30, you'll see this captured in the age from current date delegate, a function that encapsulates that partial application. On a side note, I find myself using partial application more and more in real-world C# development, especially when adopting a more declarative functional style. From there, we compose the rest of the pipeline using the AndThen extension method. On line 32, we start with our age from current date function that produces an age. Determine age band maps the age to an age band. Get discount rate maps the age band to a decimal. And finally, since apply discount expects 2 inputs, the base price and a discount rate, we use a lambda to supply the base price, which was defined earlier in the method. Each of these functions is chained left to right using AndThen, giving us a single composed function. On line 37, we execute our composed function by supplying the current date, and finally we print out the result. Let's run the app and take a look at the output before diving into the AndThen extension method. Given John Doe's birth date, he qualifies for a 30% discount. With the base price currently at £150, the final quotation of £105 was correctly output. Alright, now let's take a look at the extension method that made it possible to compose our function so cleanly. As you can see on line 84, the AndThen extension method allows us to chain from a function that takes a single input. The input flows into the first function, then the result of that function is passed into the next one. The result of this chaining is itself a function, one that still takes a single input, making it easy to continue composing or to invoke it later. Now you might be wondering what the t-mid type parameter is for. This is what enables AndThen to join together functions that operate on different types. In our example, age from current date returned an age, which is different from the input type of the next function, determine age band, which takes an age and returns an age band. The t-mid type here represents that intermediate age value. This flexibility is what allows AndThen to bridge each step in our pipeline, even when each step operates on a different type. Below that, I've included a small utility method called compose. This simply wraps a method and turns it into a func delegate, which can then participate in a composition chain using AndThen. It's quite basic but useful when you want to kick off your composition pipeline from an existing method, especially one that already takes a single input. Now I've only included synchronous versions of these composition helpers, and there's a good reason for that. In practice, it's usually pure synchronous functions that are mostly suitable for classic function composition. Once you start dealing with side effects, I/O or anything asynchronous, the picture changes. At that point you're typically working with monadic types like a result type or my own flow type, which you've seen in earlier episodes. While it's absolutely possible to compose monads, including async variants, it starts to move into more advanced territory. Honestly, I haven't had a strong need for it in real-world projects just yet. And after all the brain bending it took to build the full suite of sync and async extensions for my NuGet package flow, I'm not sure I'm ready to go monadic composition deep. Well, not at least today. Maybe in a future episode. And on that note, I think we're done for today. I hope you found something of interest in this video, and as always, feel free to leave good or bad comments and I'll do my best to answer any questions raised. If you found this episode or source code helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to help support the channel. Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye for now.